Hi, I'm Isaac, and I'm here with Nancy Hopkins, and we're going to be talking about the Women's Resource Center. Nancy?
Thank you, Isaac. Thanks for this opportunity to talk about an important time in CBC history. This was during the early 70s, and what was going on in the rest of the country was that women were beginning to find their voices and be heard in a different way. And CBC was involved in supporting women in their growth in leadership roles for a long time. And I remember we had a church member who has since passed away, but he was very active in helping women in the corporate world, in getting in board positions, because women were not on corporate boards, and we have had a long tradition of supporting women in ministry, both through our internship and all of that. So CBC's role in supporting the Women's Resource Center really was a part of that unfolding time in history. And what happened was we had a task force. It wasn't a task force. You would call it a task force now. But in those days, we just had a Sunday morning group of women that met called the Sojourners. And we were talking about things that were important in women's lives, like leadership in the church, leadership in the outside world, struggling in our role as a mother, as a laborer, all those kinds of things. And we began to build a common idea of strengthening one another. We decided to see if anybody else in the outside community was interested in the same thing. And so we posted a flyer, and we held a community meeting, and 45 people showed up at this meeting without anything other than posting a note in the local paper. Mainline, whatever that is, Mainline, what's that newspaper's name? Well, anyway, we posted it in the newspaper. 45 women showed up that night, and we did a newsprint discussion. That was something you always did in the 70s, newsprint. And out of that...
Like a brainstorming session?
That's right, a brainstorming session. And out of that brainstorming session came three things that women were looking for. They were looking for a physical place, a physical space in which we could meet together. They were looking for a referral network to be able to ask each other. You know how it is when you want to get some help with something. You say to the guy you know next door, who do you know that does such and such? And that's how information gets passed along, and that's what women were doing for each other. And we wanted to formalize a referral network. And then we wanted to have courses and workshops, support groups and workshops. So those three things were the beginning ideas for the Women's Resource Center. And then we wrote a proposal and came to the church, because most of us were really involved in the life of this church at that time. Mm-hmm. Sandy Gilmore, artist-writer, Jane Gamble, myself, and another woman named Jan Moffat who moved to Canada. So there were 5 of us. And so we were really part of the life of this church. And when we brought the proposal to this church at a business meeting, and that was one of the startling moments for me that you asked about. We had a business meeting, and the church embraced the idea and said, yes, we will allow you to use the mission house, and we'll support this mission. They took it on as a ministry. So it was a very exciting moment in time, and this church has faithfully supported women in growth and leadership, and the Women's Resource Center is only one part of that. And for me personally, I spent 7 years with the Women's Resource Center.
Was there a turning point? Like, what was the turning point in this?
I think it was that meeting, the church business meeting, when they decided, yes, we will support this idea. And then they maintained that and supported us for a long, long time. And the second turning point for me personally was when the first phone rang. When we first had the office set up and the phone was sitting there, and we're all sitting on pillows on the floor, chat, and the phone rang for the first time. Somebody had to answer it and say, Women's Resource Center, can I help you? And that made it all of a sudden real. Here we were, it was going to happen. So that was a really amazing point for me.
Thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.